Good morning, Olivia. Good morning, everyone. I am Jill Murphy. I am the Chief Content Officer with Common Sense Media. I'm sitting here today with Olivia Carville. She is an incredible investigative journalist with Bloomberg Business Week. She is behind a lot of the work that she has done is behind and has led to the development of an incredible documentary called Can't Look Away, which we're going to talk about a little bit today. Olivia, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for bringing interest or awareness to our film.
Thank you for all of your incredible work. I'm a huge fan, so I'll try and just not fangirl out too much while we're talking today, but your work has been really incredible and very inspiring. And this documentary is, it's heart-wrenching, and it has done a really good job in developing another piece of the story around the impact of social media on kids. So we will share the trailer at the end of this conversation, but I want to get into a discussion about the film itself and just start talking a little bit about Can't Look Away. It is a powerful and emotional portrait about how families are dealing with the impact and then some unimaginable loss around the impact of social media on their teens. What are some of the things that stuck out with you the most while working on this film?
I mean, the stories that come up in this film were hard to report, hard to write, hard to edit, very difficult. Hard to watch, exactly. Hard to watch, but important to do so, I think. I think everyone who was behind this film would say the same, including the families who were involved. You know, these stories only come because they have the courage to share them. And I think for me, you know, I've been reporting on the dangers of the digital world for more than 3 years now. And there are a few things that surprised me about the film itself. It's a completely different medium to what I'm used to, which is print or magazine form. And we've been following this law centre that it's at the heart of Can't Look Away. It's the Social Media Victims Law Centre, and they're representing families across the country. And what surprised me is when we started this journey 2.5 years ago, we had no idea where these cases were going to go, if any of them were even going to make it into the justice system. There's a federal law in the US preventing these cases from actually moving forward. And a lot of the companies had successfully dismissed them right at the outset. So we had no idea what the future was for the law firm or for these lawsuits that were being filed. When we started filming, the Social Media Victims Law Centre had a few hundred clients. As of today, it has more than 4,000. So the sheer scale of harm really surprised me. The other thing that surprised me was meeting a lot of these families from across the country and seeing the way they're united by a shared sense of purpose, a mission to fight for corporate accountability. This is not about the money. This is about trying to make the digital world a safer place so no other family has to go through what they went through.
That message really comes through in the film. You really get the sense of parents, families putting themselves out there to talk openly about their tragedy and try and protect everyone else's children going forward. And it's one of the most heart-wrenching parts of it's a steady drip throughout the entire piece. So the documentary touches on how kids, youth, teens have been pulled deeper into all of this harmful content. When you were doing this particular documentary, or even in the work that you do on a day-to-day basis, what's your impression about what families are aware of? And are you getting a sense whether or not parents have any inclination of what really is going on behind their kids' screens?
I feel like you're in a position to answer that with more authority than I am.
It's loaded.
Yeah, I mean, all the surveys that Common Sense does in this space, you know, talking to parents and kids across the country, trying to understand the impact of social media. And I'd love to get into some of those surveys a little later in the conversation. But for me, talking to these families who have experienced extreme and tragic harms that, you know, are raised in this film, what I got from them was the sense of fear that other families would feel the way they did, which is, this could never happen to me. This could never happen to my child or my family. And a lot of them talk about often how their kids were, you know, honors students. They had big friendship groups. They weren't losing them to social media. They didn't think they were addicted to their devices. They didn't think that the risks would, reach their children. They had no mental health concerns. They had no worries about their kids. And somehow their children fell victim to this. And I think that's one of the takeaways we hope from the film, is that this is impacting families from all walks of life. These harms don't discriminate, and these aren't bad kids misusing good products, which is a misconception that's out there. I think from these parents and the families that I've talked to, what they want to do is share the message that these are good kids being raised in loving homes with loving parents, and somehow they lost their children. And what they want to do is share that message to ensure that no other parents think, oh, this could never happen to me. It's more important for you to understand the risks and share and have those conversations with your children.
Again, mission accomplished for this viewer. I felt like that came through very loud and clear. There were parents represented from all walks of life, and a lot of relatable stories within the documentary. It was compelling to see how short the time frame was between accessing certain content and a tragic ending. And it really stays with you as a viewer, that's for sure, and certainly as a parent.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
So given your day-to-day work, based on the coverage that you do you get a sense that policymakers are tuned into these issues? Do you feel like they're talking about it from like a very distant perspective, that they really don't have a strong sense of what kids are doing online or how tech companies are behaving?
I think increasingly we have seen policymakers and legislators really leaning into this issue. In the film, we do include footage from a very heated congressional hearing where the CEOs of the big tech companies, Mark Zuckerberg, TikTok CEO, and Snapchat CEO, all brought before Congress to answer questions about why children are dying while they're using their products. And in that hearing, you can actually see at one point where they're accused of having blood on their hands. And what's interesting when you watch those hearings is it's bipartisan. You have people from both sides of the political aisle pushing back against big tech and pushing for change. And after that hearing occurred, which was, more than a year ago now, a lot of people expected we were going to see action, that there was going to be a law passed. And the Kids Online Safety Act is the law that a lot of people were calling for. And it did pass 93-1 in the Senate, which is kind of remarkable given the political climate we live in the US now. But it stalled in the House. And that's been put down to the huge lobbying efforts that these companies have made across the Hill, spending a lot of money to try and dilute legislation or stop it outright. So unfortunately, we're now in a position where I think a lot of people who are clued into this issue don't have a lot of hope that we are going to see real change from Congress. And so they're looking at other avenues, other ways to make the digital world a safer space, because it's taking too long.
Yeah, that hearing, I watched it when it first happened. It should be mandatory viewing along with Can't Look Away for every parent in the US at least. It's riveting and disturbing and compelling.
And these hearings are ongoing. There was one just a few weeks ago on online child exploitation where we saw the same thing happen, the same calls for change and the same outrage inside the congressional chamber, where it's like, how have you not been sued for this? Like, why aren't families allowed justice here? So I do think the winds of change are coming, but I don't know what we're going to see this year with the Kids Online Safety Act. I think a lot of people are holding their breath for that. And on that note, I would love to shift the conversation. And Jill, if you're comfortable, it would be great to kind of hear about the work that Common Sense is doing in this area, because I know this has been a big focus for you and your organization. Can you describe the work that Common Sense is doing to try and kind of raise awareness of these harms?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned KOSA, the Kids Online Safety Act. We are very actively involved in that. We really view anything around media and tech as a multi-pronged approach. So we don't think that there's one solution, because it's really, an unfair fight to assume that parents are going to be on the front line or teachers are going to be on the front line. competing against all of the interactions that kids are having online in a very closed environment. So as a mom, I can't compete against, big tech, but I certainly want to make sure that I'm aware of what's going on there. So we come at it from the perspective of legislation, as we just discussed. We look at it from the education space. So we really work to make sure that schools have, we have a digital citizenship curriculum. We talk with a lot of districts across the country. We really want to make sure that we're providing services and resources for schools to be able to help teach kids digital citizenship skills and make sure that their mental health is at front and center when discussing social media. And of course, we work with parents directly. So we provide not only ratings and reviews around this content, but parents' ultimate guides. So parents really have this shorthand where they can understand on a day-to-day basis what's going on with my kid. What are they looking at? What are they involved in? We can't sit around. Our view is that we can't wait for all that legislation to pass because we know that it takes a long time. We can't only rely on the schools to do the heavy lifting. Not every school has the luxury of having extra time and curriculum space within their curriculum to talk about online harms. But we really want to arm parents with a little bit of that information as well, so they can have those conversations at home. We are in all of those aspects, whether it's through advocacy, schools, or with parents in the home. We want to make sure that conversations are happening. So do not be afraid to talk to your kids or the kids in your life about these heavy, challenging topics early and often at an appropriate age, but without scaring them. But there is too much at stake to not interject here with kids and start making them the savvy consumers that we need them to be and get them thinking critically about what they are consuming.
I've been talking to a lot of experts around like what can parents do, because that's often the question that gets asked, how can I prevent this? How can I protect my child? And one of the things that came up was show them the monsters. And that was Laura Marquez Garrett from the Social Media Victims Law Center talking about how we really need kids to know what the risks are, what the harms are, including the addictive nature of these recommendation algorithms that the companies use. Why is it that you don't want to put your phone down? It's because it's designed that way. It's designed to keep you glued to the screen. What are the risks of sextortion? Explaining what it means to be asked to send a naked photo and why you might want to avoid doing that, helping educate kids so they're aware of what the monsters are before they come through the phone. And I thought that was a really effective way to talk about it and think about it. I was actually reading, because one of the other things Common Sense Media does, beyond all of the elements that you were just sharing, is research. You guys do a huge amount of research and surveys with parents and kids across the country, trying to understand how they're feeling about these issues. And I was reading one of the reports earlier today, and I do want to just share a stat that really jumped out at me and shocked me. That was that parents and kids favor requiring platforms to display warning labels about their potential risks. That's supported 81% by parents, and 72% of kids favor this as well. Another thing that shocked me is how parents overwhelmingly support age verification and, more importantly, blocking social media accounts for anyone under the age of 16. Wow. There are, I think here you say 83% of parents favor blocking social media for kids under 16, and more than half of kids support this too. I mean, that figure is astounding. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this kind of stuff is a blessing and a curse for parents. So I love that parents are, myself included, we're starting to just have a stronger reaction to what it is that we've let our kids get exposed to. And we're allowing a lot of this in many ways, but we're also holding the companies accountable who are putting it in front of our kids, whether it's an algorithm, whether it is a social media platform, or they're consuming it on a website, through a gaming platform, through conversations in a gaming platform with either friends or friends. We want parents talking about this. And I think that research shows that both kids and parents are having a strong visceral reaction to the way that they are starting to view content, view the impact of the content they're consuming or allowing their kids to consume. I said it's a blessing and a curse because I think the challenge here is that it's great to have this strong movement that we see happening where parents are speaking up and teens are starting to speak up too. But again, waiting for others to solve these problems, too much can happen in that waiting during that gray area. And so what can you do today? So while you're also being an advocate, while you're also out there talking about the challenges that kids or your friends or what you're dealing with yourself, how are you dealing with that in your own home? How are you talking to your kids? So again, it's that two-pronged approach because we can't just wait around for laws to come into action. I think that it's incredibly important at this state and at this time to make sure that we've got kids speaking the way that they do and Can't Look Away. We have this great voice of these kids that have watched all this negativity happen to either themselves or to their peers, and they're also taking center stage and wanting to push back. So again, the research captures this, and I want to look at what's the action around this inspiring frustration that's happening out there, and how do we both take long-term action, but also, what do I do today when I get offline or my kids come home from school and they're on their phone and I'm concerned about what they're watching. How does that parent react? And what does that parent have to do? And we don't want them feeling helpless and hopeless.
And I do just want to point out, because a lot of our conversation has stemmed around what parents can or can't do to help this problem, but the onus can't just fall on parents, right? Like, parents are often overwhelmed. They don't know what the right thing is to do. They're getting a lot of mixed information. They're being told that they should download all these apps, that they should familiarize themselves with the parental control tools of every different product that their child uses. And then they're looking around the world to other countries like Australia, which has created a law to ban social media for kids under 16. But the platforms here in the US say they're safe for any child over the age of 13. So I think parents are in a really difficult position. And beyond parents, there's also teachers, lawmakers, advocacy groups, journalists. Like, there are a lot of other people out there who are involved in the conversation and who are trying to help. I wonder if you want to share some more work on common sense and your approach to, like, what is common sense thinking looking forward, and how we help society as a whole kind of move through this issue, and maybe what some of the takeaways should be from this conversation and also the film.
Yeah, I mean, we have to keep mental health at the center of this discussion. We're seeing the biggest impact there, and it's taking the biggest toll on our teens. So that's very important to Common Sense Media, to make sure that we are very committed to helping educators and parents and advocates keep that at the forefront of all the work that they're doing and at all the conversations that they're doing. We're also very committed to our agenda on research. We're digging in later this year on a few key areas that are coming out of social media. So it's not social media at large, but what are the niche areas that are starting to come to the surface that we see are having an impact on teens. So that's some of the work that we're doing. Again, I had shared, we go direct to families. We've got our app, we have our website. I am of the mindset where I think it's almost too much work for the parent to download all the apps and set up their own accounts. I do think it's really valuable to see that stuff firsthand. That might not work for every parent. So another option is the shortcuts that I had described, which is our Parents' Ultimate Guides to any one of these platforms. We have all that information available on our site and within our app. We also have our own kids. So that's a huge element for parents to be able to have conversations with their kids. Within those guides that I had mentioned, we have information about what can you talk to your kid about, and what age. What I'm going to say to my 12-year-old is going to be very different than what I'm going to say to my 15-year-old. Maybe don't come at it with your kids from a negative place, and just sit down with them and ask them to show you what it is that they're doing online. Have them walk you through one of these platforms, and just to get a sense of what it looks like and how they engage. The conversations in Can't Look Away are, yes, amplified and very real and relatable It isn't necessarily every kid, but it doesn't really matter because it only has to happen to one kid for a parent to feel that insatiable appetite to have that protection over all kids. So sharing information about that, showing them some of these films depending on their ages. There are a lot of other documentaries coming out that are touching on a lot of the topics that we've gone over today. We are big advocates in using media to have conversations with your kids. So if they're not ones to sit down and walk you through the app that they're on, sit down and watch the documentary and have a conversation with them. So what's kind of next for the documentary and for you, Olivia, in this space?
I think we're just trying to get the documentary in front of as many people as we can right now. And on that note, I'm going to do a shameless plug that you can watch this documentary on jolt.com. This is a streaming service similar to Netflix. That's where it's available right now. And a shout out to the incredible team that was behind this film. Directors Matthew O'Neill and Perry Peltz from DCTV, the wider Bloomberg team. And for me, I think looking forward, I think why we want to raise awareness and get this film in front of as many people as we can is because we can't fight what we don't know. And I think it's so important for kids, for teachers, for parents, for lawmakers to understand just how extreme these harms can potentially be. The more we talk about it, the more we raise awareness of it, the safer our children are going to be in the digital world. So, with that, that's my hope.
That's so great. Well, again, thank you for all of your incredible work, for your contributions on this documentary. I encourage all of our viewers to watch it. We want to share the trailer now with everyone so they can get a good look at what it is that we are talking about. And again, encourage everyone to go over to Jolt and stream Can't Look Away. Thanks, Olivia.
Tell me exactly what happened.
I'm trying to give him CPR. I need to give him CPR.
Okay, but that's
I'm trying to give him CPR.
Ma'am, I need you to take a breath. I need you
He
to have.
blew his head off.
I feel like TikTok just put the gun in his hand and told him, pull the trigger.
How many more children have to die because Snapchat chooses profits over safety?
I was stopped 7 times.
I don't know of any other kids that OD'd on fentanyl that are still here.
The Social Media Victims Law Center. It is a law firm founded for the sole purpose of holding social media companies accountable for the harms that they're causing children.
Let's say I'm a dealer. I can easily locate you. Hey, I'm going to be at the park around the corner. You can come meet me here. It's like the platform was built for that.
I found my son's lifeless body due to fentanyl poisoning. They have the best distribution system in the world, and nobody has stopped them.
What do you say to those parents, Mr. Spiegel?
I'm so sorry that we have not been able to prevent these tragedies.
For years, because of Section 230, the doors to this courthouse and the entire American legal system was closed to them.
These products were specifically designed to be addictive to adolescent brains, and this is known to the defendant.
It's just me and Glenn and Laura down here up against the most powerful, richest companies in the world.
People say David and Goliath, and I said, it's not Goliath, this is Leviathan.
We're gathering evidence that is going to show the judge that Snapchat's full of it. When they say that we don't know how it works, we know how it works. Hi, Michael. We're going to make a difference.
This is the first case that's ever been tried this way. Based on the design of their algorithm, based on the design of their platform, not the content.
My son and his girlfriend had had disagreements. Imagine having that sadness and you're searching for help, and what you're getting is suicide content.
These companies have been gaslighting us for years.
This is all about money.
The purpose of all commercial ventures is to create a demand.
Our children are the casualties.
We need to take back the power from these companies. They created a dangerous situation and then manipulated these kids.
They know the levels of addiction, sexual abuse. They know the levels of suicide. They're not showing our kids what they want to see. They're showing you what they can't look away from.
we all feel empathy for the plaintiffs and their losses, but plaintiffs have not and indeed cannot assert any legal theory under which SNAP would be held accountable.
These parents are going out there every day and re-traumatizing themselves.
I'll never see his face again or hear his laugh. If this can save even one person, it'll be worth it.
This is a fight I've been training for 30 years. All right, let's go to war.
Until my final breath.